Hey there, everybody. Welcome to my channel. Thanks for clicking on the video. If you like it, make sure to like and subscribe. Don't forget that part. And yeah, we're going to get into it. I want to talk about the 90-day fiance before the 90 days tell-all part 1. We start off with Misha. She's arriving in New York for the tell-all. Like, she's excited, but she says she knows she's walking into a den of wolves. Statler is next. She's like, oh, it doesn't look like a dumpster fire, but it's about to be. Like, okay. Guess she didn't move to the UK. Then, she has to go ahead and tell us about her digestive system, because that's, all she's got is that and her sexual life. So, yay. She walks in and she tells Misha that she looks like a movie star. And I honestly didn't think she was dressed up as much as I thought she would be. But, she still looked nice. And Statler thinks she looks nice, but she knows that she's really Catholic and Statler's really gay. So, could be some conflict there. Next up, Riley's feeling good. He's not here to judge anybody because his stuff stinks the worst. At least he knows, right? Then we see wannabe Christian, and he thinks that the other castmates thinks he's like a booze hound, lady charmer, and that's not true. Which isn't true because none of us thinks that he charms the ladies. He's just trying to charm the ladies. And he's already trying to gaslight us, so yay. Misha's like, wow, I have so many questions for everyone. And Riley says that he wants to speak to Nicola. And, Misha immediately looks uncomfortable, like, oh, geez, where's this going? And Riley says that his mom used to say things like, don't use the Bible to justify your bad behavior, which is exactly what Misha does. He tells us that, Nicola needs to understand that when Misha is sharing her feelings, he will bring it up. And, he'll bring up, like, it doesn't say that he has to do that in the Bible. And that's dismissive and hurtful. Next up, we get to see David. Yay! I was excited about that. And he's excited to meet everyone for the first time and see New York because he hasn't been there before. Christian goes up to meet him, and David lets us know that he'll have a few interpreters, and, they'll be walking around with him as well, which is cool. And David walks in, and everyone's excited to see him. You know why that is? Because him and Sheila were the only non-toxic couple of the whole season. They're the only actual, real, loving couple who wasn't toxic. I mean, they have issues, but who doesn't? And then Misha asks what we're all thinking, I guess, if his family saw the whole donut banana hand signals. And, they did. Statler's like, well, is there anyone that you guys aren't looking forward to seeing? And then in walks old Ice Queen herself, Amanda. David says Amanda was so mean and he doesn't get it. And Christian thinks that she seems never content. Misha says the comment that grossed her out was the bloody sword thing, which that grossed all of us out. And then Amanda walks into the group. I'm sure she heard everything. And Misha's like, yeah, we were just talking about you and Razvan. And Riley's like, we just thought you were exploring your emotions and feelings. Like, that is not what they said. They said you're mean and all of that. Now she tells us that looking back at filming, we didn't get to see the real her, which is bull crap. Like, that is the real you. We didn't get to see the you that you wanted us to see, or the good side of you. But what we saw was you. She said when she was filming, she was afraid how people would see her. Now she isn't afraid of that, because we all can't stand her. So of course she doesn't care. And then Christian's like, well, I just feel comfortable talking to women because I talk to them like they're people. And then Amanda's over there being miscalled a kettle black and saying some of the castmates are toxic. And she's like, yeah, it's self-explanatory because she's stuck-up ass. And then Misha asks again because Miss Reporter over there is running the questions. And she's like, who's the most toxic relationship? And it's like, we all know who that is, right? But Riley says he's number 2. Christian's like, no, Riley's number 1. And Riley's like, I own my toxic. But Statler is like, no, Gino and Jasmine are most toxic. It's like they're voting for the yearbook or something around here. Statler says she used to think Gino was the scum of the earth, but now she feels he needs to be protected at all costs, which was a little dramatic. Like, yeah, Gino doesn't deserve all the verbal abuse and everything, but he stays, so he can learn to protect himself. You don't have to do it. She just says that she's been in a toxic relationship and watching them is triggering, which can be true if you've been in a relationship like theirs. But so is watching her and her codependent ass and her, like, manipulating Dempsey that apparently no one wants to point out. But yeah, Statler's like, I'm just glad I won't be in the same room with her. And we all know that that's not going to age well. And David agrees, you know, he doesn't know why she cries 24/7. And he wants to know how to stop her from crying. And while they're talking, in walks Gino. And I'm like, why is Gino like the best dressed of everyone here? He finally got it together. But then I remember why. Jasmine is with him. I feel like they were like the best dressed couple, in my opinion. I liked Cleo's dress. I wasn't a fan of Statler's. Riley looked good. Christian's pants completely showed off his shins. So, yeah. Like, his pants were the shortest I've seen in a good long while. Even shorter than some of the ones Tim has. So, Gino's like, yeah, anything can happen today. Because he has some shocking news. And he's like, well, what were you saying about me? And Christian tells him some of them were like more on his side than, you know, I'm assuming he means Jasmine. But then in comes Jasmine looking like a whole new person. A whole new world. That was Jasmine. I know I can't sing, okay? But that's what I heard in my head. I do love her dress. I love the color. I thought the green was pretty on her. And, you know, no one's happy to see her. She says, like, the embassy in Panama was a nightmare, but she finally got her visa. But then she heard all the judgmental things they were saying about her. But then she walks in, boom, awkward silence. And that's how she goes. She's like, so I'm going to start by letting you guys know that I heard everything. And she's familiar with all of their stories, and they all have baggage and issues. And they're like, oh yeah, that's right, we could all agree. Because they're all, like, cowardly, and this group is, like, the most, like, group mentality, flip-flopping, which we'll get to in a little bit. But they, like, agree on something, and then someone says something else, and then they're all like, oh yeah, that's it. Statler is like, well, do you identify that you're toxic? And Misha's like, hey, we haven't put a label on anybody, but I'm very worried for you, Gino. And here she goes. Jasmine's like, first of all, you're being judgmental. Misha's like, well, I get to have an opinion. I'm entitled to it. And Jasmine tells her this is like bullying behavior. But they're saved by the producer. It's time to head to the stage. They walk in, they say hi to all the screens of their partners. Tyree's on the screen. Sean walks in, beautiful as always. I love the pink. And she's like, for the first time, we have a live studio audience. Then she starts her hello, starting with Gino and Jasmine. And she's like shocked they're sitting together. And then David and Sheila, they're doing well. She asks Sheila if she likes his new beard or no beard. She's not a fan of the beard, but he isn't cutting it. And I'm telling you, Sheila has got to be pregnant because she had a very full, voluptuous chest, and she's a very tiny girl. So that's my bet. I'm pretty sure. Next, she goes to Amanda and Razvan. She asks them what happened after, she came back to the U.S. And he says he started to think about it and he felt like he needed to take a step back to be ready for something that big and serious. I'm like, yay! Good job, Razvan. I knew once you got away from her. And then they get to Christian and Cleo. And I wasn't really surprised, but they're still together. I don't know if they'll be together after the tell-all. That's kind of my prediction, is like after they see all this, probably not so much. Misha chimes in that she's surprised that Christian and Cleo are still together because he likes to go to the bar and talk to other women. And, if Nicola did that, it would be a deal breaker. She had to, beg him to go into the bar for 5 minutes, so it's a whole new world for her, too. She doesn't know what that's like. Nicola says they're not compatible. Christian isn't on the same page. Moving on, Sean says hi to Misha and Nicola. I guess they haven't seen each other in a year. But he's coming very soon to visit her. But not on the K1 because they're still waiting on the annulment. Tyree's next up, and I assume that he's not in the studio because he's sick. He said something about a headache and a sore throat. So he says he's good. He just has a hard time when people are asking him if he's okay, because then he has to relive everything. Next up, Sean says hi to Statler and Dempsey. She asks, about Statler coming to live with her. And she says she's the most important person in her life, and she wants to live with her. Riley and Violet, they're not together, not even a little. And Violet does say she doesn't have the intention of bad-mouthing Riley, but to share the truth that everyone doesn't know. Gino's like, so Riley, I thought Violet was pregnant. What happened with that? Or something like that. And Sean's like, Gino, that's a great question, but that's mine to ask. WTF, what's wrong with you? And that's it for the introductions. We get to start off with Jasmine and Gino. I'm like, ugh, great. So she's been in the U.S. for a few days, and she's happy. But she feels like when God created Michigan, he didn't intend for people to live there because it's so cold. And Sean's like, I'm born and raised in Michigan. And honestly, I live in Minnesota, and it is pretty cold. But we manage. We're a hardy people. And we have a good sense of humor. Sean starts showing clips of their issues with Dane. And they show a meeting for coffee and the video call. And then, they say they have a clip we haven't seen. And, of course, it's just like the extension of their coffee. Or no, it was the extension of the video call. And she's just talking about how she's drier than the Sahara Desert. Like, nothing's going on. It's going to, fall off and, poof, dust everywhere or something. And Gino's like, talking to your ex about our sex life isn't okay, period. And Amanda's like, I don't know how you could trust her around him. First of all, he doesn't. And second of all, shut up, Amanda. She's the Meg of this tell-all. And Jasmine is like, look, you're insecure. You've said you're insecure. I'm insecure too. And that's my insecurity. And Gino's not an angel either. And Gino's like, you were calling him baby and talking about how bad our sex is, and that's BS. And she's like, I needed male validation because Gino was rejecting me. And Sean's like, well, did you meet him other times that Gino doesn't know about? And she's like, well, I'm going to be very honest because I choose to. And she knows Gino will get mad, but she was coming to America. She doesn't know if she'll ever see Dane again. So he proposed a goodbye dinner. And they're like, so you went on a date? No, a goodbye dinner. Oh, what day was the dinner? February 14th. Oh, so the dinner was Valentine's Day? That's the day of friends. I never once went out with a friend on Valentine's Day. Not once. I mean, I do stuff for my kids, things like that, but it's not the day of friends. And she's like, ridiculous for even saying that. She says she didn't know it was Valentine's Day till they got there and there was hearts on the wall and all of this. And Amanda's like, well, did you get a gift? And she's like, oh, just like some flowers and a note. And Sean's like, dinners, flowers, a card, Valentine's Day. And Gino just thinks that that's sad that Jasmine would do that to him. And I think so too. Like, everyone knew you knew it was Valentine's Day, Jasmine. You are guilty and you're sneaky and you're a liar and you're everything that you accused Gino of being. So she doesn't see a problem being friends with her ex. And you know what? That shouldn't be a problem, but you don't even let him think about his ex. He can't remember her name. He can't even use the letters in her name in everyday spelling. That's how jealous you are. So, no, it's not okay for you to be friends with your ex. And in therapy, she said she would give up her friendship with him for Gino, and she didn't. So then old F-boy of the year Christian over there chimes in and says, Jasmine's looking for attention. And, he would know. Takes one to know one, right? And Jasmine's like, come on, you're calling me needy? And, like, basically saying Christian is the one who's an attention whore. And he's like, well, I could see a world where Dane would say, hey, if it's really that bad, come down to my place. And she's like, we did it so many times in the past that they got sick of it. And Misha's like, that is really gross. And I am glad that someone told her she's gross to her face. Gino looks appalled and says, like, that's why he doesn't want them together. And they ask her if Gino said he had to choose him or her relationship with Dane. She thinks that that's unfair because she doesn't have a lot of friends. Like, make some new friends. You're in a whole ass new country. And, Dane's just part of her close circle and is just a friend. And Misha's like, Gino, she's constantly telling you she's not going to listen to how you feel. And at what point does he say to himself that she doesn't care how he feels? It's like, he knows that. But he's like, well, the breaking point is if she cheats on him. Like, that's the only thing. That's the only way you're going to leave him, is if he leave her, is if she cheats on you. Like, she tells you all the time that's what she wants to do. So then Sean asks about the video, if Jasmine does in fact have a video from a month before Gino visited with Dane. And she says that she does have a video saved somewhere that is her and Dane from before she had met Gino. Gino asked to see it. And I'm like, well, she probably wants to see which stage of her face she's in to know when the video was made. And he apparently wants to see the date. And she has it on some memory stick. And she's going to find it and delete it. Then they ask when the last time Jasmine talked to Dane was. And she sat there and she thought real long and hard about it. And it's after she arrived to the U.S. just to let him know what was happening with Gino and all the tension. But she hasn't talked to him since. Like 3 days ago. That's a long time. It took you that long to remember. It's been a few days. But then they let them off the hook and they head out to the break. And Gino asks her why she still has the video saved. And she says she's going to delete it if that makes him happy. And he's like, well, you would only save it if you wanted to watch it again. She says she never has. I believe her. Sometimes you have those things and you just save them. But you never, like, as far as I know, like, personally, I would never go back and watch it. I would never want to watch myself. That would make me want to vomit. So I believe that she never went and looked at it. She probably just had it for fun and never tracked it down until she could use it as ammo. So Riley's back there saying that Jasmine's fragile mentally, because he could pick that out when someone's fragile mentally. And Jasmine's telling Gino that he was so judgmental out there, and she can take it from everyone else, but he's acting like he doesn't know her. And I'm like, well, damn, Jasmine. Like, you said you went on a Valentine's date with Dane, who's better looking, richer, better in the bedroom. Everything you could possibly want. Anytime you're mad at Gino, that's what you tell him. But you went on a Valentine's Day friend goodbye date. Of course he's mad. Statler is in there going on about how somebody that she had been with was a narcissistic abuser, and she knows the behavior, and that's it. It's like, okay, Mrs. Lovebomb. Like, first of all, narcissists won't admit they were wrong or they have any fault, and they don't care about other people's feelings. And Jasmine always admits that she's messed up, that she has a problem, that she knows her behavior's bad. She cries and feels hurt when she hurts Gino. That's not narcissistic behavior. Making someone like a scavenger hunt and bringing them to a castle and doing all these other like huge romantic gestures to manipulate someone to moving in, letting you move in with them in such a short period of time, that's narcissistic behavior. And I think I've mentioned that my ex is a narcissist, and like I've been going through therapy for a few years to recover from narcissistic abuse. And when I met this man, and I did spend 9 years with him, but when I met him, like, he was like nobody I ever met. I was perfect for him. He would like show up with gifts. He did all these things. Like, I never even thought he could look at another person. And within a month, he was living with me, because before that, he was living on someone's floor. And, you know, he needed me, and I needed to save him. And, like, narcissists do that. They move in fast. They do that kind of thing. Jasmine is just a wounded individual. So, Jasmine is like, Gino, you better start standing by my side. Like, she's Angela 2.0 when she's like, Michael, if you don't stand up for me, we're divorcing. She's like, Gino, if you don't stand by my side. I don't want to know what's going to happen, actually. But she does say she's trying to adapt to a new country, and he isn't making it easier for her. Which, I mean, like, the tell-all isn't easy for nobody, lady. So break's over. We're moving on to Statler and Dempsey. Sean brings up how caravan living wasn't easy for Statler and led to an awkward moment they didn't show till now. And my first thought was like, this has got to be a bathroom thing. It's Statler. It's going to be a bathroom thing. And yep. Immediately in the clip, Statler has to pee. And it gets worse. Okay. She started having some issues. She was about to like number 2 in there. And that's not allowed. So then she runs out the door and pops a squat right in front of the front door. She couldn't run off to the tree, nothing. Just right in the bright lights, you know, the cameras, just, I would never do that. And if I did, I would be so mortified. And she was laughing. And Dempsey was laughing because what else do you do? And also, that's the unseen clip you're going to give us. Not to mention the second one they give us from this couple. But that, like, I want to see a woman popping a squat like a poodle out there in the middle of the English countryside. No, I don't. I can't believe that. I was appalled. So yeah, I'm glad we saw that. Then we find out that they're not going to live on the farm together. But they're excited about something else that's like terrifying for the both of them. Well, Statler, and it's like a huge step for Dempsey. And they decided to buy a camper van. So they can travel around different countries in Europe. And that's pretty cool. It sounds like the van life thing people do here. And Statler's like, yeah, Dempsey's been selling all her things and she hasn't. And Statler hasn't been. She's been waiting till the last minute and it's too overwhelming. And she was the one trying to run over there to live. So Riley thinks she's crazy and, you know, asks Statler what she's planning on doing for work. Statler works online, so she can work from anywhere in the world. And Dempsey's going to do odd jobs, but Statler's going to be the breadwinner and support them. And Sean asks Statler if she has any hesitation, and she does. Because she wants a partner who's financially independent. Like she was. She was working on a farm that she lived on, and she enjoyed. But you don't want to live there. So she came up with a better solution for you guys to be together and have an adventure. She is financially independent. So, then we find out they're planning on doing this in a couple weeks. Statler's like, it's more Dempsey's thing to do. You know, like do what she wants in the moment. And Statler's just holding on for dear life, following her lead. The van is going to be smaller than the caravan. But Statler is trying to push herself to grow as a person. And she feels this will do that. And there will be a working toilet. So then they show us another unseen clip of Dempsey basically saging the whore out of Statler. And then she uses a yoni egg crystal, which that's what they're called. Yoni eggs, because yoni is the name for the woman's parts. And they're actually pretty nifty. And they help with a lot of things like, you know, tightening and Kegel exercises and cleansing and things like that. I personally don't have one, but I've always thought about it until now, because I did not need to see this. So she's saging her. She almost burns her vagina. Nicola's face is mortified. And then they bring up Statler's adventurous sex life and how she even did that during church mass, which, correct me if I'm wrong, but that's Catholic, right? Who has mass. And, you know, Nicola's about to fall over in his chair, I am sure. Everyone's shocked, asking all the questions. You know, who, what, where, when, why. She's like, I was in my 20s and young and dumb and drunk. And Jasmine, now this is important. It'll be important in a couple seconds. Jasmine is like, she isn't judging. I'm just curious in case I want to try. Sean is like, hey, Nicola, what do you think about this? Statler's like, well, oh no, great. He says it's not respectable mocking God in a conversation. And doing that in a church is a sin that you get on your knees and, you know, pray for forgiveness. And he's not wrong. Like, they're all making jokes, but people do take their religious very seriously. And what she did was very blasphemous and, like, almost unforgivable, right? He's like, why would you go to a church and do that? That's a big sin. Then flip-flopper Christian over here, who was impressed by Statler 3 seconds ago, now agrees with Nico. He's like, yeah, it's very disrespectful. Same with, like, Jasmine. Oh, that's terrible. And this is what I mean. First, they say one thing. Yeah, Statler, you're great. That's hilarious. Sex in a church. 2 minutes later, Nicola's like, dude, I'm deeply offended by that. Do you realize how wrong that is? And I'm sure some of those people go to church as well. Not that they talked about it. But they're like, oh, yeah, you're right. That is awful. Like, pick a lane. Stick by that. Cleo was worried Christian was going to say he did that in a church. And he's like, oh, no, that's my one of my no-goes. And then Sean asked Dempsey if, like, Statler's past upsets her. And she says, no, everyone's entitled to their own past. And it doesn't bother her. Also, they bring out Statler's friend, Natalie. The one she had the video call with, and I think the lunch date. And she tells us before she gets out to the stage that Statler loves fast and deeply because she really wants it back, and that's just her personality. And she feels like this might just be a fun time for Dempsey. We're like, what? No. So Sean asks Natalie if Statler moves quickly, and she's like, yeah, always. She never half-asses anything. She's in there 100%. And then Jasmine is like, well, ask Natalie what makes Dempsey special. And she's like, I'm not 100% sure Dempsey is special. Dempsey's eyes get big. The audience's mouths drop. And this was one of the moments I'm like, oh yeah, there's an audience. Because I don't know what value they provided. And by the looks of this preview they show, because she says that, they show the reactions, boom, commercial coming up, right? And in the preview, it looks like we're going into all the Americans gang up on the people from other countries. Like, it was fine with Jasmine because Jasmine deserved to get some of that. But Dempsey wasn't bad. She really wasn't. Sean asked Dempsey how it feels to hear Statler's friends say things like that about their relationship. And she's like, well, her opinion's invalid to me. And Sean's like, well, why do you say that? And she's like, because it is. Natalie's like, well, that's a bit aggressive, to be honest. And you're like, you just told her she's not special. Like, that wasn't aggressive. Part of me feels like Natalie has this secret crush on Statler or something. But Natalie says, she's important to Statler, and she doesn't like to feel like her opinion is invalid because she thinks it matters what she thinks. And she's like, Statler's like, I'm not surprised because Dempsey can be opinionated. Natalie says, like, what Dempsey's picking up on is her having reservations about them the whole time. And she doesn't know if she likes her as a person or not, but she does have concerns for Statler. So maybe that's why Dempsey's defensive. Sean's like, yeah, okay, but why did you say she isn't special? Like, that's the whole problem. Deflect. She says she hasn't had a chance to meet her or see them in person, so she doesn't know, and all she has to go off of is what Statler's told her. Sean asks Dempsey how she feels, and she says she is fine, but they call her out on it. She's like, you're not fine. You need to tell me the truth. This is the tell-all. They pay me the big bucks for this. And Statler's like, yeah, she's like this with people sometimes. Dempsey disagrees. I feel like Dempsey's just hurt. And when she's hurt, she probably doesn't want to talk. Misha, see, this is where the Americans picking on the foreign people come in. Misha asks if there's red flags because Statler should be seeing some. Statler is a red flag. What red flags does Dempsey have? If you guys know what red flag she has, please tell me. Because I don't see it. And it's like, well, what about you, Misha? You're a red flag, so is Nico. Everybody on that stage should be wearing red. Except for David and Sheila. And Sean. Anyways, Statler says they have a hard time communicating. And it's hard for them to discuss things because one of them always shuts down and, she thinks they need couples therapy. Sean asks Dempsey if she's down for therapy. Silence. There's complete silence. She says that she wasn't, but they talked about it, and they bought some books instead. Couples works books, they can meet halfway. Then she asked them about the having kids things, if they've talked about that. Statler says they have, they're on the same page, and they both don't know if they want kids. So they both change from absolutely no kids, absolutely I need kids, to I don't know. Then Natalie chimes in and is like, I don't know, it sounds like it was something they were fundamentally incompatible on. And then Sean's like, well, what advice would you give Dempsey? And she's like, take care of Statler, she has the best heart. And this is why I feel like she's jealous or something. I don't know. Do you guys think that the friend is secretly in love with Statler? She's like, Statler has the best heart. She'll give you the world. So take care of her. And then they say bye to Natalie. And I'm like, what does Misha and Nicholas say? Thanks be to God that Natalie was done. Because I was over her. Moving on to Misha and Nicola. She asked, Misha what this last year not seeing Nico has been like. She says it's every year is agonizing, but after meeting each other in person and then being apart, that's a different kind of longing. But they plan to see each other again next week. He's going to fly to New York, meet her, and then they're going to fly to Minnesota together. Then Sean asks about the annulment, and Misha says that she's been waiting a year and a half for it, and she's waiting for a tribunal to decide. Christian is like, are you really leaving that up to a bunch of old dudes to decide? Like, they never stop disrespecting this religion. And she's like, in her faith, yeah, like, it won't make sense to everyone. But she places her faith on Mother Earth and Father Church. And Nico says he trusts God. And she's like, Nico, I didn't tell you this, but I got a decision on the case. And no matter what, she loves him, and it doesn't change how she feels about him. But she was granted the annulment. He's happy, she's happy. I'm happy, why not? Yay for annulment. And then Jasmine's like, Nicola, you will lose your virginity. And she tells him she's happy for him and he deserves to enjoy sex. And this tell-all made me remember that the last tell-all Jasmine was on, or something, I do like how she interacts with other people. I think she tries to be nice and friendly, and she wants people to like her. And she's a whole different person when she's with Gino. Like, we spent all season seeing her be irrational, immature, screaming, crying, all of that. But just seeing her interacting with people normally makes me laugh. I think she's kind of funny. And she's got a good sense of humor and like a nice smile and all of that. And I did really like her before this season. So it was nice to see that side of her that I don't hate. Then she asked when they're going to get married, and they both say they're ready now. And Nicola's also ready, but he says, sex will be after they get married, and it's between husband and wife. Statler's like, F that. He says he respects like her faith. She says it's not her faith, it's her sexuality. And he just says, again, the Bible says husband and wife, which is true. But then they move on, and I don't believe that. I'm saying it's true that the Bible says that. I don't know why. But no, I definitely don't believe that. And then they move on. They start showing clips, like the one where he wakes her up at the crack of dawn, and he doesn't know what heavy petting is, and the mud rubbing. And she asks Nico what makes him think that he knows so much about the woman's body and how to please her, and he says it's not rocket science. And they all tell him it's more complicated, he's going to have to learn and practice. It's not all just putting the banana in the donut. And Nico's like, if God made sex between man and woman, why does it have to be that hard? He's not saying he's an expert, but he'll learn and she will teach him. Misha feels like she can teach him, and she's excited to consummate the marriage, and she feels like she's got this. They all give him like a few seconds. They're, teasing him about that. Riley says he's going to need an inhaler. Riley's also funny. These people are all like decent individually, I think. Some of them. And, he's still promising to hook up Misha twice a day after marriage. Jasmine's like, Gino, tell him about the blue pills. But of course, the blue pills is a sin too, because it's not natural. And, moving on from that, they bring out Misha's daughters. They got all the Minnesotans up there on stage today. She asks, if they think Nico and her mom are a great couple. They say he's different than who her mom would usually go for. Sean asks if they see him being a good stepdad. And they just don't want to feel judged. They're teenagers. They're living teenage lives. They don't want to feel trapped in their own home. Statler says she does feel like he'll come in and judge the hell out of them. And I'm like, well, isn't that the point? Get the devil out, judge the hell out. She says that she thinks they won't want to be home anymore, and it'll break the relationship with their mom. For once, she isn't wrong. This reminded me of like my mom's ex-boyfriend. She just moved him in. I hated him. He was a giant douchebag to like everybody. He made my life hell. He like would say things like, go upstairs, I don't want you to breathe my air type of things. And I am man, I am God. Like, he thought we were all supposed to bow down to him. I think that's why Nico bothered me so much this season. But I can see why they're worried, because that does happen. The daughter says, it's just been the three of them for so long, and they don't want things to get in between that. And that's also true. Like, these are all things that children go through when they have to get a step parent. And, parents aren't always mindful of that. They're too worried about just what they want. So Sean asked Nicola, let's say, when you guys are living together and they want to bring a boy over to hang out, is that okay? He says he isn't the boss, that Misha is, and he's not going there to marry her and make her kids miserable, which is good. But Christian is like, well, wouldn't it be your home too? He says, yes, but he trusts his wife and he's going to marry her. And she knows, she'll do what she has to do. The girls can only hope he's telling the truth. They think he'll voice his concerns to their mom, and they don't know if that'll make her more hard on them. Misha says she can see why they're worried about judgment, but they don't have to worry about that because she will check it and handle it. Then we get to see the clips of them fighting. After that, Misha's crying. He's telling her not to cry, and Statler's like, she can cry. He says that he apologized to her, and he apologizes to all the women in the world he offended. So, thank you for that. I don't accept yet. We'll see next week. Sean asked the girls how they felt seeing the things that he said. And, the daughter doesn't want her mom to marry someone who doesn't care if she's upset about things and isn't listening when she brings up concerns. And if they ever have a father-daughter dynamic, will he listen when they bring up concerns? Misha's like, first of all, nothing's coming in between me and my kids. And she just hopes one day they'll see what she sees in Nicola. Statler says that she is seeing him invalidating her emotions in present time. Sean's like, so Nico, when you said I need to show Misha that I'm the man, what does that mean to him? He says it isn't something bad, that he's the man, men have to be men and women have to be women. And then he says, for in today's world, men become women and women become men. So he's the man. The man is the head of the house, he's the provider and gives advice, and the women follow the man. God created men for women and not, God created women for men and not men for women. So I was actually I was pleasantly surprised, not by what he was saying, but in the preview, it looked like he was talking down on Cleo or something, or people like Cleo. And I was not happy about that. But then when I saw this clip, I realized he's saying that now women are the head of the household and we're working and providing and doing all these things that men are supposed to be doing. And you know what? That's because that's the way our society has changed, I guess. Women have to take care of themselves a lot of the time. Like I said, I raised 3 kids completely by myself, with the occasional help of my mom and my sister. But financially, emotionally, materially, any of that, that's all on me. And so a lot of us don't have men we can rely on to do that. I'm not the first one in my family to be in this situation. So I was just glad he was talking about that and not something else. Christian says he's hearing 2 things. The woman needs to follow the man, but at Misha's home, her daughters, he's going to let her take the reins on that. So how does he reconcile that? Statler's just hearing BS, apparently. Nico says that it's in the Bible that the man is in charge. Women need to follow them, and that's what the Bible says. But Christian asks, how are they equal? Amanda chimes in, and she agrees with Nicola that biblically the man is to lead the house and be that, and the woman is to be equal, but to follow him, and God is the top of the house. And Christian says being judgmental and forcing his beliefs will turn the girls off on religion, which is true. And, Christian would know about turning women off, right? They ask Misha if she sees conflict down the line, and she says that her daughters are strong women. They'd put Nico in his place without her having to do it, even though she would do it and she wouldn't hesitate. Statler is like, yeah, and he's back there laughing. He says, I think he's explained to Misha that he laughs when he's nervous or uncomfortable. And he's already told her that, and he's apologized to her for it. Statler tells Misha that she hopes that she's aware that, just because this guy's Catholic, she doesn't have to go with him. There's other Catholics out there and other fish in the sea. And Misha just knows she can't walk away from him. And the good thing is he's coming over to spend time on her turf in her world with her friends and family. And they all agree that they need to meet and see what the future will bring. They go backstage, they take a break. Misha calls Nico. And then, for some reason, they show her calling him and then go right to her interview, telling us that she's had a lot of nerves about their relationship because for her, there is no way out and she has to be smart about this. Jasmine says that she's concerned about Misha settling for less because of her religion. Apparently, Amanda's very religious, and she agreed with a lot of what he said. And about God and the man and wives and the roles in the home. Statler's like, yeah, be with a Catholic dude who treats you well and is emotionally intelligent and doesn't freak out when you cry or have an emotion. Jumping back to the video call with Nico and Misha, and he says he does feel stressed about the daughters and all of what they were saying about him. He's going to her home soon, and hearing her daughter's concerns isn't easy, but he does need to hear them. Maybe that'll help him in the long run. She is like, you can't think for a second that he can walk in the house and try to judge them. And he says his relationship is with Misha and not her daughters. But that's not true. And she says that, she's a package deal and it involves them. And he's like, I'll treat them like Jesus. And she's like, not everything has to be a biblical sermon. She said she loves it. They both love the Bible. Everybody knows. But he's like, why not talk about Jesus? That's my only goal in life. Talk about Jesus. She knows that, but it can't be a cover or a wall so her daughters don't get to know him. And they have to get to know him, which is true. If all he does is talk about Jesus and the Bible and what it says and tries to teach him all that knowledge, it's going to go in one ear and out the other, and they're never going to want to talk to him. Jasmine says, Nico comes off as a very unexperienced person in relationships. Like, you don't say. Thank you, Jasmine. You crack the case. Because, she, I think, is stuck on that. Him saying he understands how women function because of 5th grade science class. And, they just all leave it at he's going to get here and then she'll make her decision. We get back on stage. We get to Riley and Violet. And Sean's like, we all want to find out about the pregnancy. But first, here are some clips of your issues. And Sean brings up how Riley says that it was common for Americans to hire a private investigator to look into their partners and is asking if anyone agrees. And I remember saying I didn't agree, that I've never heard of that being common. It's like a rare case. And Riley says what he was saying is that it's common for Americans dating abroad, to look into the person they're dating. And Amanda agrees with Riley because if he had suspicions about something, there isn't anything wrong with that. Christian is still sitting there showing all of his shin and no socks and says, if she wasn't answering his questions, it's justified. Tyree's like, I don't know if it's common, but I agree with it. Like, yeah, because you hired one 4 years too late, Tyree. But he did hire one. And Riley says the main reason he wanted to do it is she lies, and he's just caught her in major lies. Misha's like, I can't believe this. Like, if someone said that to me, they hired a private investigator, she couldn't handle the relationship. Misha has lots of deal breakers, I guess. Dempsey either says that, there's like no trust from the beginning then. So Dempsey and Misha are not cool with that. I'm not cool with that either. So Sean asks if he caught her in lies before, like why not just break it off? He says he did, but then she was harassing his family, begging for them to, get him to contact her. And he knows he didn't have to. But when you're in love with the idea of your love, it's hard to let go. And then before Violet gets to say anything, we're bringing out Tiffany. Like, they didn't even say nothing to Violet. These biased ass people. So, Sean asks Tiffany if she has any questions for Violet, and she's still waiting to know why she didn't delete the app. Violet says they agreed to be boyfriend and girlfriend, so she deleted the app on her phone and didn't know she had to delete the account as well. Which, I believe that. I don't know if I have a dating profile out there or not. I didn't really ever do online dating. It's not for me. Sean asked, if her profile was still active or, she just hadn't deleted it. And Riley says, it told him how long ago she was active, and it was 2 days before. She says she's not a high-tech person. And Riley told her the account was still active, but she hasn't been on there in a long time. But why did he go on there to check if she was still active? Jasmine says she has dated many, 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 many men online. And when she isn't that interested in a person, she keeps the app to keep her options open. And she thinks that's what Violet was doing. Violet was like, well, you went there to check on me. I was doing the same thing. So now she does kind of have two stories. She could have started with, I went on there to see if you were on there and you caught me. And then Sean brings up Violet's surprise pregnancy news. And we see the clip of him telling Tiffany. And Jasmine's like, you have all these problems and you're just going to do the thing unprotected. And he's like, it was the last night. They couldn't get along. He didn't expect her to show up for that. And she happened to show up on her own. So, it's just all her fault. Sean asks why he kept it a secret. He says that she asked him to. And Violet said she asked him not to share because in Vietnam they don't broadcast couples dating, and going to hotels and sleeping with each other. That in her culture that's frowned upon. And Violet tells us in the end, Riley says he can't believe he has a child and he can't have a child. And he thinks that she slept with another man, and then she breaks down crying. So Riley decides to talk and say he's saying there's science and there's miracles. Violet says that after Riley left, she did the test because she didn't get her period. She bought a second test, did it on the phone in front of him. And Sean's like, so you don't trust that? And he says he isn't a woman, but he's a reasonable human. And even if you take a home pregnancy test, don't you go to the doctor to confirm. Newsflash, Riley. I don't know about Vietnam, but in America, they don't generally see women until they're 12 weeks pregnant. Unless you go in and ask for a pregnancy test and skip the home pregnancy test. Because when I found out I was pregnant with my twins, I didn't know they were twins. But I took 3 tests. They were all positive. And I called and they told me that they don't generally see people until 12 weeks. Why? Because the first 12 weeks are an iffy period. Unless you're high risk. But, a lot of people don't even tell that they're pregnant until 3 months. Because that's when you start going to the doctor. That's when you're out of the window of, miscarrying and things like that. So, she might not have wanted to run right to the doctor. I don't know. Violet says he requested for her to go to an international hospital, but there's no way to go if he doesn't support her financially, because she's only a teacher. And hospitals like that are very expensive. Riley says he called the hospital, talked to the doctor, put a card on file with them, but she said she had her own doctor. And Sean wants to know why he wanted to go to a different one, which seems like common sense, but it's because Violet's doctor doesn't speak English, and he needed one that does. Because the timelines and the dates aren't making sense to him. It's like nothing ever makes sense to this man anyway. He doesn't believe the timeline or that it was him. Sean wants to know what he thinks her goal is to lie about him being the father. And he thinks that she didn't like him walking away so easily, that she wanted him to like stay and chase her and fight for her. And, you know, they're so toxic that he believes that she would lie to him to get him to commit. Like, not only are the dates off, but he knows medically where he is. Violet says that he's always looking for ways to be suspicious of her. He rolls his eyes and he's like, oh my God, just cut it out and own your own BS. And then Jasmine's like, do you think that she's capable of lying about a child to manipulate him? And, you know, he has been saying that, but he says yes again, a hard yes. Sean asks Violet if she's pregnant with Riley's child. And we have to find out next week. Like, they're killing me. Like, how many weeks I gotta wait and find out about this? My theory is that Violet is going through premenopause and is starting to miss her periods. Things like that. I remember this episode of Golden Girls where Blanche says she's pregnant and Rose faints or Dorothy faints. And then by the end of the episode, Blanche finds out she's starting menopause and, you know, her life is over and everything. Shout out to my Golden Girls fans out there. So that's my theory, is that she's just getting older and that stuff's slowing down. Maybe I'm wrong. But, you know, maybe she's real pregnant. That would be a big baby. So yeah, let me know what you guys thought about this reunion. The preview for next week looks good. Yeah, like I said, they didn't really get too into anything. I felt like with Gino and Jasmine, they didn't really hit on any of their big issues. Misha and Nicola, they didn't talk about like her meeting his family or how he treated her in front of his friends. So I'm hoping we'll get some of that next week, because those are the things I want to hear about. Like, honestly. Anyway, I hope you guys have a great night, morning, day, weekend, whenever you're watching this. And don't forget to take deep breaths and smile at a stranger, maybe. Only if they don't look sketchy. Something like that. I hope you guys have a great night, and I'll talk to you later. Bye.